Presented by Elite Performance Industries. Trucks are ready to go, and so are we after 3 weeks of racing. We're atop the broadcast booth here from the Richmond Raceway. My name is Kenneth Bueno. We'll have Devin Henry join us alongside in just a little bit. Gary Sexton punching all of the buttons all night long using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Well, over the first 3 races, we have seen 3 different outcomes. A very chaotic super speedway race at the Daytona International Speedway. A very interesting Las Vegas strategy finale where Santiago Tires was able to walk to the checkered flag. And an Atlanta photo finish between 2 Logitech G Altus esports machines. And now we get to finally go short track racing for the first time in this 2022 season. So much to consider when it comes down to this race tonight. Of course, over the first 3, super speedway, 1.5 miler, 1.5 miler, and now we end up at a very short track where everything can change and other drivers can find a way to punch themselves into the top 70 as of all the splits that are going to happen here tonight. First of all, let's take a look as to where we are, though, in the virtual world. We'll go overhead and look at our track map, of course, with images usually provided to us by Google Earth. Of course, being the first short track of the season, follows alongside the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series schedule. Richmond being the first one that shows up just a little bit outside of Richmond proper in Henrico County, Virginia. You'll find this very short 0.7 mile, 1.21 kilometer track that opened all the way back in 1946 with 14 degrees of banking in turns 1 through 4, 8 degrees on the front straightaway, and only 2 degrees on the backstretch. We'll talk about that. The big differences in banking. It's going to mean a lot when it comes down to getting the throttle off of each and every corner. This track, a lot of history in NASCAR competition, in the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, and of course the NASCAR Cup Series that'll take place in the Toyota Owners 400 later this weekend. The Trucks, though, taking it first in this Road to Pro schedule. It's going to be a lot of fun. And also to note, start-finish line a little further back, not centered there out of turn 4, so most likely we'll see some very good moves happen before they cross that start-finish line, and it's going to be amazing to see all of them go through that as you take a look at the scenic looks overhead of this short track. And all of the drivers right now locked in on the starting grid, so that means it's our time to take a look and go trackside as we'll take you to your starting lineup, see exactly where every driver and your favorite driver will be lining up here tonight in round 4 of the 2022 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series. Tucker Minter lines up the fastest time on the grid with a 21.204. He was the first driver to the green flag tonight, alongside Michael Cozy Jr. I believe the best start we've seen out of the 22 truck and Cozy Jr. in the entirety of the season. He'll start alongside his Logitech G Altus Esports teammate. Anthony Burrows, Mr. Walterman, will start inside of row number 2 in P3 in the Ford F-150, with Daniel Budafoco in the number 29. Recently got to victory in the eNASCAR College iRacing Series. He starts P4 on the racetrack. Jordi Lopez is fresh off of a photo finish win at the Atlanta Motor Speedway just a couple of weeks back. He starts the inside of the top 5 with Blaze Crawford in the 30 truck to his outside. He'll be in P number 6. Alex McCollum, former eNASCAR Coke Series talent driver, will be in P7 in the 16 truck with Seth the Merchant, previous winner this season at the Daytona International Speedway. He will start in P8. Row number 5 will feature Andrew Navarro. He's had a couple of great races and pretty high up in the points in the top 70. We'll keep an eye out on him on the first short track race tonight. In P9, Daniel Folkingham in the number 15. He'll round out the top 10. Joel Blewett, we've seen him have a bit of a struggle, at least within recent weeks, but he'll start in P11. Tyler Gary will round out the top 12. In row number 6, Parker White, who's again the number 1 truck here on the grid, he'll be 13th. Daniel Roper is in 14th. Santiago Tires, previous winner this season, he'll round out the top 15. And then everybody to the top 20. Justin Bolton, Jake Nichols, Matt Danson, Brad Mahar, and Drew Ferrinars to the top 20. Kenny Brady will be 21st alongside Casey Tucker. Jonathan Delaney will join Christopher Pfeffer in that row number 12. Eugene Mozganoff will round out the top 25. It'll be David Brown and Brian M. Smith all the way back to P27 before you find Devin Curl, Trevor Edwards, Larry Pace, Justin Norwood to the top 30, and then Tyler Severa, Boyd Hogan, Brad Davies, and Logan Kress. It is a full 35 truck field here tonight from the virtual Richmond Raceway. Now that means that these trucks are going to be very close, but it's still going to provide a lot of entertainment here tonight on the first short track of this campaign. The weather is pretty nice here over the Richmond Raceway in Sim. It's a 73-degree afternoon on track, 74 degrees on the track temperature, so drivers probably won't be fighting for grip all too much here with the heat on the asphalt surface. Winds to the west at about 4 miles per hour. We've got 61% of relative humidity, but not too much to worry about here on the track. We're going to see some clouds cover over the sunshine, but nonetheless, it's going to bring many different dynamic factors to this race, and no doubt these drivers are going to have it in this event. We'll go just under 100 miles, 97.5 to be exact, for 130 laps, 157.3 kilometers. We have 3 green-white checkered attempts, no fast repairs, and of course, Roto Pro qualifying iRacing Series and all of the eNASCAR ladder steps are open setup races. Pace car makes its way to the entrance of Pit Road. It'll be 2 Logitech G Altus Esports machines. Tucker Minter, Michael Cozy to the green flag from the Richmond Raceway. It's a clean start for the 4 of Tucker Minter, who was just short of that photo finish battle just 2 weeks ago, but already quickly to the race lead in front. Michael Cozy is followed into second. Anthony Burrows has stayed in third. First side-by-side battle you'll see so far between Jordi Lopez and Blaze Crawford, who's stuck all the way in the high side, that is, for the entry of the top 5. But a relatively clean start here on lap number 1. Everybody already getting into their rhythm. And it's one thing we're going to see at this Richmond Raceway is that if there's one thing you want to get dialed in, it's going to be the muscle memory here when it comes to the braking zones, when it comes to making sure your arms are in the right place on the steering wheel, making sure you can get around the radius of these corners, and of course manage the throttle. That's going to be very big here when it comes down to this 130 lap race. And there was a problem with the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series drivers just earlier this week at this very racetrack. Had a bit of trouble getting the throttle out of the corners. Car would step out. It is the same phenomenon here with these NASCAR Camping World Truck Series machines, so keep an eye out on that. The transition to full throttle out of the exit of both turns 2 and turns 4 going to matter a lot here by the end of this race, especially if we get a long green flag run. Tucker Minter so far continues to man the race lead. Got a battle, though, for a P6 on the racetrack. Alex McCollum looking to the inside, the 16 truck on Blaze Crawford, and it looks like since the drop of the green, Crawford has since fallen back just a bit. He's been trapped on the very high side. There's been nowhere for him to go, but luckily he finds space in just behind Alex McCollum, in between himself and the Toyota Tundra TRD Pro of Seth the Merchant, who now is in P8. So at the moment, everyone's single file, and Tucker Minter has already gapped about half a second to Michael Cozy Jr. as Jr. tries to hold off Anthony Burrows and company. All of them, of course, all single file, none of them running for position at the moment. Michael Cozy Jr., though, it hasn't been the best start to this 2022 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series season. Probably not the start that he would have hoped for with the 99. And there's one thing about Cozy, is that he is a resilient driver. We've seen him battle many circumstances and be able to surge ahead at the end and be able to be a checkered flag holder, and it is going to be the same case most likely tonight if he can pull it off. And looking for a resurgence here, not only in the point standings, but of course looking for a win to possibly catapult him further up in the standings. I believe now, though, it is our time to bring in the second member of our broadcast team. Of course, Glendale, Arizona's Devin Henry. Devin, it's been a rather clean first start to this race at the moment, so not much to talk about here at this Richmond Raceway, but the biggest note of importance here in this season is that Richmond is the first appearance of a short track in the calendar, so that means a lot of new factors going into what is a dominant 1.5-mile stretch in round number 1.
And you know what short tracks mean, having to be able to have the ability to manage your braking, how hard you brake into the corners, and exactly how you maximize your speed while also conserving that right front tire. When you're in turn 1, a lot of these guys are kind of blitzing, kind of below, almost like diamonding the corner off on entry at least. That takes a lot out of your car while it is the fastest way to go. So these guys have to negotiate all race long. What do I need to emphasize right now? Is it more about saving this right front tire, or do I need to save time right now? And being able to manage that and not overheating your tires as well, that's so difficult when you come to any short track. And of course, Richmond is just so dominant when it comes down to forcing you to not just use the right foot, but also the left foot in unison to maximize that speed.
And I mentioned it a little bit earlier, how the Coke Series drivers had a tough time trying to master that over a long green flag run, pushing in the throttle. You can't really mash it here at Richmond. You got to be really patient with that pedal, specifically being able to make sure you don't get the spin on the rear wheel tires and be able to shred the Goodyear Eagles all the way to its end. You don't want to have that happen, especially when we stay green, which so far over the first 12 laps, it has been just that. Not many drivers making contact, not many drivers getting into each other. It's relatively been a clean race so far, and everybody at this point minding their own business, making sure they can at least get themselves pivot all the way to the end of this race. So far, though, it's been all Tucker Minter, and at this point, ever since he already started on pole and got in front of Michael Cozy Jr. back to turn 1 on the first lap, Devin, he's since gapped up about a second to the 99 truck. So at this point, Tucker Minter, who was just on the outskirts of that photo finish battle at Atlanta Motor Speedway not too long ago, is already starting to show his short track prowess and leading all of the laps so far.
And it's a long race, still a lot to adapt to for anyone inside the top 5, inside the top 10 to try to make moves and get themselves into a position to go and fight for this win. Minter up front and Cozy just over a second behind. You still have the ability here to mix up your lines once you get a little bit longer into the green flag run. Once you get around maybe lap 20, lap 30, and those tires really begin to start to give you trouble and you start pushing in the corners, then you're going to see guys maybe start to even use that outside lane. I saw today, I decided to join in the C-Fix series, and I was seeing guys downshifting mid-corner, using the outside lane. This is obviously an open setup series, so these guys are going to make sure that everything just down to the micro inch is correct on these cars to make them drive the best for the individual driver. But I'm curious, once these tires begin to fall off, do we see guys begin to experiment in the corners and find ways to adapt to that right front tire and get themselves that extra speed, extra closing distance to go out and get spots once we kind of get into a long green flag run?
that may matter in this race. And you brought up a good point, at least I touched it as well on the race analysis. It is an open setup series. All of the stages in the eNASCAR ladder are the same in terms of setup. You have the opportunity to tinker it the way you want and kind of play with it throughout the week. That's what a lot of these teams and drivers have been doing to get the setups in right shape, and of course make sure the drivers are comfortable with it, and also making it fast comparative to the rest of the competition. And one of those options you can change is the rear end ratio, and in some way that changes how the RPMs handle and the way you go through gears in this NASCAR Camping World race truck. So maybe later on we will see drivers shuffle down to third gear instead of sticking into fourth for the entire time throughout. And even in the fixed setup, you go into fourth gear, into the corner, you just hopped on the brakes and the revs really dip down. They plummet all the way to maybe about 4,000 RPM, and that doesn't give you the best acceleration out of either corner. So you may want to look for that if you go in a later run in this race. So watch a battle so far. Currently for what is P10, Daniel Roper in the 9 truck outside. Joel Blewett in the 2 truck on the inside, although Blewett's going to have a terrible jump out of turn 2. That little transition in the banking really hurting drivers at some point. Devin and Parker White going to be the third horse in this fight.
And you see the 25 of Justin Bolton behind them, also using that outside lane to an extent. I don't know if that was necessarily intentional, but he's under attack right now from Drew Fahrenartz. And so that's also one of those points where when you're forced to the outside lane, you can still utilize it and find different ways to advance yourself forward. But it might be a little bit slow up front with not a lot of passing. But once you get outside that top 10, there are a lot of guys just fighting for their life right now, trying to either wait for the car to settle into the groove that they need it to be, or it's taking a swing for the worse, and they're having to adapt to what the car is giving them.
So at the moment, Tucker Minter above the rest of the field, 1.1 seconds as he closes into 3 and 4. Going to work back to the start-finish line. They are approaching lap traffic right now. Michael Cozy Jr. currently sits second. Anthony Burrows has since remained in third. The Walter machine has kept himself there with the Allegiant colors this time on his Ford F-150. Daniel Buttafuoco at this point currently holding on to P4. Jody Lopez Jr., who won at Atlanta Motor Speedway, he currently rounds out your current top 5. At the moment, everybody's single file as of lap 23 of 130. And by the way, Devin, this is the same length distance as the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series race that happened earlier this week. So if there's any notes that you could take as a Road to Pro Series driver at the moment, the Coke Series, the top level, might be it.
Yeah, do a little bit of something, and you know that these guys probably study that race every single Tuesday night, and now you're in the opportunity to give yourself a good position in this race and try to bring yourself a finish to move on to the next round of the Road to Pro Series into the Contender Series. And like you were talking about, Kenneth, up front right now it's pretty calm, but you have guys trying to battle things out. Once you get a little bit further back, it's no longer just outside the top 10. You're sliding back to about 12th, where Joel Blewett is still trying to hold back Justin Bolton. And that 25 machine tonight, it's actually using the outside lane. He's tucking now into position to grab himself that 13th position, but Drew Fahrenartz is trying to battle out with him. Andrew Navarro has slid back from the 9th starting position on the grid. Now back to 15th, trying to now use that outside lane, but not to his choice to try to gain back some positions.
They're side by side right now for 14. Justin Bolton has been on a downfall since the start of this race, at least just a little bit. Hasn't been able to really gain up the positions right now. He maintains the inside in 3 and 4. Andrew Navarro, who finished in the top 5 just 2 weeks ago at the Atlanta Motor Speedway, he was surge ahead, nose back to turn 1. Andrew Navarro will take over P14. Justin Bolton will hold on to 15, and he's got a couple of trucks behind him as well. Casey Tucker, Santiago Tires, Christopher Pfeffer among the drivers, about 16th through 18th right now on the running order. All of them now starting to search for grip around the middle end of the racetrack, and that was something big that Michael Conti had implemented, at least in the middle of the race in the Coke Series event, Devin, is that the middle lane, especially in 1 and 2, and maybe even in 3 and 4, can work. You can find grip. You can let the truck really roll around the corner as best as possible and find the best exit as you can, while also kind of shoving the other driver further down to that yellow line and pinching them down low. That's been the case in the past there with Fahrenartz for 13th, and it almost worked for Navarro at the same pace that got in front of Justin Bolton. Right now, though, the entire field single file.
And we are starting to see drivers start to use that higher lane. We're talking about Santiago Tires. He's someone who's really excelled thus far in the Road to Pro Series, excuse me. He's trying to utilize that outside lane while holding back Pfeffer at the same time. And then you go a little bit further, Justin Bolton using the outside lane. It's seasoned defensive Casey Tucker. So a few different drivers now using that outside lane. I'd be interested to see if any of them begin to start using that downshift too. There's a lot of different ways that you can go around Richmond Raceway. I obviously don't know what is the best way. Otherwise, I'd be actually racing as well. But That's not necessarily where I stand, so I like to watch these guys and see all the different nuances that you tend to find, including this now. It's Christopher Pfeffer on the inside of Santiago Tires, and he's using a lane right now that's kind of like I was talking about earlier, diamonding that track and almost did like a slide job, but was able to stay on the inside and then bolted up the track coming out of turn number 2, and then he immediately goes to the outside lane in 3 and 4. So as these tires continue to wear out 30 laps into this race, we are seeing drivers start to migrate up the track.
And surprisingly enough, the track temp isn't really that hot. Touched on it before we went green flag racing. It's a total of 74 degrees Fahrenheit here at the in-sim at the Richmond Raceway. So it's not as hot as it can be. Right now, drivers are still trying to experiment and see what lane works for them at this point of the race. Now, 32 laps under the green flag without a caution. Anthony Navarro so far has fallen back just a little bit. It looks like Christopher Pfeffer, Justin Bolton, and company were able to get by. Navarro struggling on the very bottom lane. This time, Tires will go to the very outside. This is for 17th. Tires will make the move work there out of turn 2. Will shuffle into turn 3. Next driver up, Kenny Brady in the 3 truck now working that outside. So at this point, Devin Henry, the truck of the number 12, Navarro, is struggling on the very bottom, and usually you would see the opposite effect happen where drivers on the outside get freight trained. This time, Navarro is the one not having any help out of any part of this Richmond Raceway.
And at this point, Navarro is just trying to grasp onto a top 20 position, and I think at this point you just have to hope that a caution comes out soon and you can go down and service your Hey, woo! That was weird. I typically don't get things like that. Yellow flag does come out, and this is going to be an opportunity for Navarro to come down onto pit road and try to make some changes, dropping from 9th to 20th in this opening 34-lap run.
So caution comes out at lap 34 of 130, and it's on behalf of contact between Boyd Hogan and Larry Pace. It was diving into turn 3. Hogan tried to make the send work, tried to go to the very bottom, but just barely made contact with the rear quarter panel of the 18, and Pace went around for a spin and backed into the outside wall just around the Federated Auto Parts sign in turn 3. Went around, was able to bring it back up, and the only damage is to the rear end, but he seems to be okay. Pace was running around the top 30, top 25 on below, and now with that spin, he is back to 33rd. But you're right, Devin, it does open the opportunity for the first round of pit stops to happen. Tucker Minter will dive down low along with Michael Cozy Jr., and the entire field will head down to the pit lane. It is busy. 4 tires and fuel look to be what's going to come up.
And really, Navarro is the only driver who had a multitude of issues during this run. Everyone else, they were either stagnant or they were gaining positions. You look at like Christopher Pfeffer, started 22nd, or 24th rather, now is in the 16th position. So a few of these guys have been picking their way forward, and this is your first opportunity to touch this car, adjust your air pressures, maybe try to change some sort of mechanical parts of this car and get yourself a little bit faster. And the biggest issue that I have in iRacing is the fact that when I'm getting my car better, everyone else is doing the same, Kenneth. So you got to try to get yourself above everyone else who's also making adjustments at the same time.
And it's exactly true, and a lot of adjustments could have taken place right there on the first stop of the race. Tucker Minter going to be able to stay ahead of the curve, and he will be your race leader for the moment. Anthony Burrows has moved second. Daniel Budafoco is third. And Michael Cozy Jr. had slipped ahead of his stall by just a little bit, and he falls 5 positions short this time by. He's going to be P7 at the moment. So our first caution here, lap 38 of 130 in round number 4 of the 2022 eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series. We'll take a short break, but you won't miss a thing from the Richmond Raceway. Tucker Minter, your leader out of the first stop of the race. Welcome back to coverage of the 4th round in the 2022 eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series on the Richmond Raceway, with live coverage on Podium Esports presented by Elite Performance Industries. So after our first green flag run that lasted just about 34 laps, we've had our first caution involving Larry Pace and Boyd Hogan in turn 3, and the field is ready to go back to green flag racing with Tucker Minter, the driver who has been up since start of, at this point in the race, entirely after getting the pole in qualifying. He has yet to relinquish. He'll have Anthony Burrows to his outside. So, Devin, a lot of things we've learned over the first run and probably didn't expect it to run as green. In fact, that this is the first short track of the entire season. You would expect maybe more tensions. I don't want to jinx it now, but what have we learned so far over the first run tonight?
Well, I think we saw once those tires got worn, everyone started to move up the track. I mean, at the start of the race, the black hole was on the top. Later on in the run, the black hole's on the bottom. So being able to know where your car needs to run at a certain part of your tire cycle is going to be very important. On top of that, though, you got to drive down Tucker Minter somehow. No one's done it so far. I'm interested now that Anthony Burrows slides into the second position. Does anyone have an opportunity here with brand new, fresh Goodyear rubber, try to hunt him down and maybe make a move here as we're all stacked back up?
Well, it might have helped Tucker Minter. They had a Logitech G Altus Esports teammate to start this race on the outside of row number 1. It's a different story, but it's the same circumstance when they jump to the green flag. Minter way ahead. Fielder going to turn 1. They're side by side for second.
Door to door. Daniel Bonfuco is on the inside in that 29 machine, falling off the pace, though. And that's one thing about Richmond is when you're not able to float all the way up, down, off the corner, you lose so much speed and tempo. Jordy Lopez Jr. having the same issues. McCollum goes around his outside. Now the 16 truck gunning for the third position going into 1.
And a good move by Bonfuco in the 29, moving ahead of Alex McCollum, who tried to get the outside surge and just could not do it. In fact, he'll make the crossover move. The Silverado will go all the way to the inside, so the 16 will dive the nose in, but just not enough to get the moment out of turn 4. He'll single file out. And again, all of them once more chasing Tucker Minter, just like it's been over the first run, and looks to be the same at this point in the race. The first side-by-side battle lands all the way back into the latter half of the top 10. Parker White to the inside of Daniel Roper, 2 Toyota Tundra TRD Pros, one of the newly redesigned trucks on the iRacing service, and obviously redesigned for the 2022 season. Roper tagged the outside wall, almost got into Parker White there, but luckily they keep it green.
And this is for 9th, and this is a part of Richmond that I really don't like, but it's really emphasized here in the Truck Series, especially early in the run, maybe the first 15 laps. When you get back on that throttle, the car never really settles if you get on the gas too early going through the center of the corner. So when you're trying to get back fully on the throttle and you're going down the back straightaway, the rear end just wants to keep turning towards the wall. And so you have to get your car under control. Sometimes it's not until about a quarter or halfway through the back straightaway, especially when you're side by side, that you finally get all 4 wheels set. And it can either be better or worse depending on how your car is set up because of the curved front straightaway. So even once the tires get worn, you still are living on the edge sometimes on corner exit, and it gets better, but it never really gets back perfect to where you can just slam on that throttle on corner exit and be set down the straightaway.
And that's a good point as well, because the transitions here, coming out of turn 4 and coming out of turn 2, are wildly different. So you have to face 2 different circumstances in the same lap. You come out of turn 4 and you're constantly turning while trying to mash in the throttle at 100% because, of course, you want to get the maximization out of the corner exit. But then when you get out of turn 2, when you get to the 2 degrees on the back straightaway out of 14 degrees in turns 1 and 2, that truck will hit that transition, it'll dive down the hill, and then all 4 tires will become probably 3 or 2, and you will not get the grip you want out of the exit when you're on the throttle, and that truck will really want to spin around and dive left into the inside wall. And that's been a problem for some here tonight, especially in the battles for position, as Daniel Roper is still under fire this time from Joel Blewett. That is for the last spot in the top 10. It can get very hard, Devin, even with a lot of the downforce here on these NASCAR Camping World Truck Series machines. It's very tough to implant that throttle out of these corners. That's what makes Richmond Raceway so unique.
And Kenneth, I'm seeing a few different drivers somewhat content with running the outside early here in this heat cycle in the tires. Justin Bolton was running the outside a lot going into the corners. He's decided to migrate back to the bottom. Blaze Crawford is taking a very wide attempt into the corners. Jake Nichols in 15th. He's been using the outside lane with no one to his inside. There's a line of about 5 cars, and only 2 of them actually have a car to the inside of them, and they're all utilizing the outside lane in turns 1 and 2. I'm curious if the back half of the last run actually kind of lit up a few sparks in these drivers, and they realize even with the fresh tires, depending on how this car is set up in the track is reacting to them, and all the cars on track and all the rubber being put down, this outside line might be more viable than I think some of these drivers realize at the drop of a green flag.
And also with the rather cool track temperature and with the sun now covered by the clouds here in Sim, it does help with the grip levels, so why not experiment at this point of the race and maybe make it work. And a majority of the drivers through the top 10, top 15, and even in the top 25 are all working that outside lane. One truck, though, got way out of shape. That's Blaze Crawford. Tires goes around out of turn 2, and that brings us our second caution of the evening here at Richmond Raceway. Your Las Vegas winner in trouble at lap 52.
And this was, I don't know if this was a domino effect or if this was two separate incidents, I think, that happened here. In turn number 3, we saw one driver get loose and get into the wall, and that wasn't what the caution was. The caution originates behind them, actually, and I think this is completely separate. Christopher Pfeffer got a little bit of a bump from Tires, and that brought the car sideways, and I mean, that could have collected so many more cars. So you see the 4 move up the track and hit the wall, but all the chaos happens behind him. I don't think he had anything to do with this caution. This was a secondary incident that happened all on its own between Pfeffer and Tires that escalated through 3 and 4.
And it looked like it might have been a result of what happened there with Blaze Crawford. Got the tap in 1 and 2, got sideways, and I think the rest of the field was anticipating a crash, so they all tried to check up. They all aimed to slow down, and then Tires had gotten into Pfeffer in the middle of the corner. They stacked up with Andrew Navarro, and then around the 17 had gone, and it was just kind of a tough story from there. Brad Davies, Logan Kress with a bit of damage. You saw the bear escape there by Andrew Navarro. He almost about got into it, but was able to swerve out of the way in just enough time. There's another look at Brad Davies and Logan Kress slowing down for the incident. They gathered just a little bit of damage, but it isn't too much to affect their race pace, so hopefully they'll be able to keep it into the event. So one thing we have noticed here with this yellow flag is that a good amount of the field went down pit road. 18th place on back had made their trip on the stop, including pole sitter Tucker Minter, who since that stop has fallen back to 20th.
So this will be interesting how these drivers decide to change things up. Alex McCollum will now inherit the lead, and Cozy will be in that second position. And honestly, I always love when we get some sort of a split strategy, because now this is going to force drivers either out of their comfort zone or force them to go directly to the script of what they had prior leading into the race. And this can lead to very different results if you get a long green flag run. Will it force someone else to come down onto pit road later on in the run? Or are we going to have a scenario where those, right now, the freshest tires are going to prevail over everybody else? So I love seeing split strategy, and we'll see exactly how this works out, because you're saying top 18, that's almost half the field, so we're almost on a 50-50 split.
That is definitely true, and I guess we're not at Vegas anymore, but we can still pull out the dice, I guess. The strategy is still going to happen no matter what, but I think this call may work if you're guys like Alex McCollum or even Michael Cozy Jr., who started really high up in the field. He started second to begin this race, and he's second still. Is that because it's a 50-50 split? That charge up to the field isn't going to be as dramatic as these guys would probably may have anticipated if it was, let's say, only 5 trucks or maybe less who had stayed out, because as there are so many trucks that the drivers on fresh rubber have to get by, it's ultimately going to make their chance to get up to the front a lot more difficult, and it could offer some protection, give these guys up at the front a little bit of a shield so they can race amongst themselves and continue their strategy without having it change all too much. So we'll double the field up here on lap number 57 and 130. We'll go green. At lap number 58, Alex McCollum and Michael Cozy Jr. will be the first 2 on the road to bring us back to the green flag. Seth the Merchant, Daytona winner. He'll be inside row 2 in 3rd. Daniel Folkingham will be 4th. And Drew Ferrinars, we saw him in a battle a couple of laps ago. He now enters to the top 5. Jay Nichols has moved his way to 6th. Jonathan Delaney will be 7th. Christopher Pfeffer was slightly involved in the incident in 1 and 2. He will be 8th. Matt Danson and Boyd Hogan round out your top 10. It's an early jump by Alex McCollum, but we're back under green from Richmond. McCollum clears in front of Cozy, who gets a bump from Folkingham, but McCollum is clear to turn 1.
Folkingham is telling Cozy, go man, I'm trying to get rid of your teammate. Seth the Merchant here, the number 5 machine, able to stick that inside lane, though, as they remain door to door. A little bit further back, they're already starting to single file out, but the Merchant still, I think, has the muscle to get by Falkenham for that third position. They might be side by side for a while, though.
They're trying to battle over for third, tooth and nail, but they're 3 wide, even further behind. I saw Eugene Mozganov get out of shape in 1 and 2 on the opening jump. They're almost 4 wide. Parker White in it as well. Many drivers trying to fight for position. It's a hornet's nest in the midfield.
We almost just had a wreck. Justin Norwood got sponged up to the top of the track, slammed on the wall. I think Bolton was a part of that. Navarro might have got a piece. I think Crawford was a part of that, and somehow they all kept it straight, but they lost a monstrous amount of time to the front group.
Indeed, you're right. There was a lot of contact. Daniel Roper was collected in it. Bolton tried to swerve to get out of the way. Kenny Brady also almost got involved, and that could have brought out a yellow. They were about 4 wide coming out of turn 2, and already here at a track like this, with the narrow space that you already do have given, it is a very tough situation, and luckily everybody is able to escape, some with some majority damage, but at least for the most part, they're able to keep their races going. For the most part, that is the good news for them. But right now, front row seems to be rather stable. Michael Cozy Jr. has settled into second. Daniel Falkingham trying to make a move on the inside slightly, just could not do it as Cozy shut the door, and he'll remain in P3. In the first battle we see side by side, I believe it was between Trevor Edwards and Casey Tucker. And Devin, I mean, when you're dealing with fresh tire trucks versus old tire trucks, you're going to have this happen. 3, 4 wide and drivers being a little impatient to get to the front, and that's what causes the incidents and the contact as they're 4 wide in turns 1 and 2 again.
And that car on the inside is Tucker Minter. Now he's behind a 3 wide pairing. So even though you got the fresh tires, there's literally nowhere to go. Every lane that you could possibly use getting used up in front of Tucker Minter. He's been able to squeeze his way into the 15th position, but there's still so much battling in front of you, and the tires don't wear quite as bad as some of the other tracks like the mile and a half, so you're not going to have this suddenly large gap in tire wear and speed. So Tucker just has to continue to pick them off slowly, one at a time. But right now, him and Burrows are just doing what they can to hold the inside line and gain what they can. There's still a few spots outside the top 10.
And that's been the trouble, just trying to weave, pick and choose your placement on this racetrack and get around all the old tire trucks, because of course you do have the advantage, and there are some drivers who would be willing to let you by, but then there are some who are going to say, hey, I'm going to protect the bottom, this is where I'm most comfortable, and I'm not going to let you have it unless you really force yourself down there. So it's been the case, and especially going into turn 1, we've seen many dive in on the inside and kind of forget the laws of space and immediately shove themselves into the corner and kind of force their way and say, hey, I've got fresher tires than you, I'm going to surge up to the front of the field, and you're going to have a hard time playing defense against me. I'm just going to force the issue here if you're not going to let me have the spot. And that's what we've seen. Almost cautions here and then, but luckily everybody's been able to keep it green as we are approaching the official, or pretty much at the official halfway mark of tonight's race. And as we were already there, we'll remind you that our coverage is presented by iRacing, the one-stop shop for everything sim racing. We'll head through our midway race break, as so far it has been Alex McCollum at the head of the field. He's got Michael Cozy Jr. just behind him. Daniel Falkingham will be back in P3. Seth the Merchant, who is back in 4th, currently sits there just settling in. Jake Nichols rounds at the top 5. Drew Ferrinage and Jonathan Delaney back to 7th. It's Daniel Budofoco, who's battling with Matt Danson for 8th, as Danson currently sits 9th, and Parker White currently rounds out your top 10.
White under attack as your pole sitter Tucker Minter was in 11th, now 3 wide for the 9th position. Behind them, Anthony Burrows slides by Boyd Hogan for the 12th spot. Jordy Lopez Jr. sits in 14th with Christopher Pfeffer behind him. Joel Blewett in the 16th spot. Behind him is Casey Tucker trying to pull back Kenny Brady on the inside. Devin Curl, Andrew Navarro round out the top 20.
And it's David Brown in the 17. We saw him do very well at Daytona to start the season, although it hasn't been the greatest outing for him tonight. He is 21st. Blaze Crawford is in 22nd. Trevor Edwards is 23rd. Eugene Mozganov had a moment out of turn 2 on the last restart. He is 24th. Tyler Gary will round out the top 25. Then it's Brian M. Smith in 26. Daniel Roper had a bit of trouble a little bit earlier on in that recent caution. He is 27th. Logan Kress is 28th. Santiago Tires, after the spin, he is 29th. Brad Davies rounds out your top 30. Then the final drivers in the grid sit Brad Mahar in 31st, Justin Norwood 32nd, Larry Pace 33rd, and 34th to Justin Bolton in the 25. Tyler Severa in the 7, who was the pole sitter at Atlanta 2 weeks ago. Don't believe he was able to make the grid, unfortunately, for tonight's race at Richmond. He rounds out your top 35. So that is your full field rundown at the halfway mark of tonight's race, as Alex McCollum continues to man the field. And I figure here, Devin, I probably was anticipating more resistance out of second on back, but Alex McCollum, ever since he found the clean air, he has yet to let go.
How about the guy who hasn't had clean air, though, recently? Tucker Minter was the dude with that clean air. He's been bobbing and weaving, boys. He's up to P7 now. During that midway race break, he was trying to slide out of 11th. Now he's surged all the way to P7 and is giving the 29 of Buttafuoco a really hard time as well, right on the rear bumper. He's almost to Jake Nichols to get back inside the top 5. If Minter can scurry his way up and maybe get inside the top 3, I'm curious how the split strategy might work out for him. And not too far behind him, Anthony Burrows is now into 10th. So those are a couple of your guys who are way up front and went and got the latest pit stop. So Minter now moving to the inside. This is for P6, and Buttafuoco is going to say, I'm just going to let you go on high, move up Minter to P6. And now he's already looking for P5. He's hustling and bustling, Kenneth.
Yeah, that 29 did not want to fight at all. He said, you go, I'll let you by, and Jake Nichols is going to do the same, it looks like, here coming out of turn 4, and there's not much you could do. There's not much play on the defense that you can have here against fresh tires, because it's not like it's 1, 5, or maybe 10 laps. It's 17 laps of difference between the drivers who pitted recently and the ones who had stayed out on the last caution, so there is a large discrepancy. If you're the guys on the older Goodyear Eagles, you're just trying to hold on, and then all of a sudden you see a bunch of charging trucks behind you trying to ram into the door, and either you kind of shake in your boots and get out of the way, or you try to make a fight out of it, but it's just so hard to do so. And already, with the passes that Tucker Minter had made for 7th and 6th, he just got around Seth the Merchant for the top 5.
And you know what, Kenneth? Let's not accidentally kind of misrepresent what's happening here. Tucker Minter, yes, does have fresher tires, but it's not by some staggering amount. This is a large amount of racing his way through a pack, about half of the field so far, up to the 4th position. The next car with fresh tires, I think, is Anthony Burrows in 9th, so it's not like it's just because he's on fresh tires. He has been working this field to get himself in a position to potentially jump back into the top 3. It has been an impressive run here on the second stint.
And no doubt, Tucker Minter has picked up the pace, and we've seen him do well before. He just never found the pace exactly to run up front and dominate races, and so far here at Richmond, he's done just that and is looking to be on the pace to get back to the front in just a little bit. This is a look from Daniel Falkingham's Chevrolet Silverado, and he's got a charging Logitech G Altus Esports truck in Tucker Minter trying to get by. This time Minter will look to the middle to try and find an exit out of the 14 degrees of banking. He won't get it this time, but may have this set up to turn 3, and then guess what, Devin? He's got a teammate in P2, Michael Cozy Jr., and also the truck he just got by not too long ago is also a teammate, Seth the Merchant, and countless times we've talked about Logitech G Altus Esports, the strength in numbers that they have in series like this, as Minter makes the pass complete for 3rd. They can play some games with the rest of the field, and they can band together and maybe confuse everybody else.
Jake Nichols is in trouble right now. You just saw Parker White and Anthony Burrows sticking their nose under the 28. He was around that top 5 position. Now he's at the possibility of going 3 wide. Anthony Burrows wants to dig it in. Luckily for the 28 machine, Parker White had to get out of the gas there, and so he'll actually lose a position. Still, though, Nichols under attack and could have a boatload of more guys coming up behind him. He's lost a handful of positions as these cars continue to evolve and the sun has come back out at virtual Richmond.
And Jake Nichols had started 17th tonight in this race at the drop of the green flag, so he was at one point the biggest mover in this race, and now it's starting to equalize out with everybody else who had made some progress here since the drop of the green. And Nichols now under fire from the Allegiant truck of Anthony Burrows, as Burrows is going to dive to the inside. Make the move almost happened there at 3 and 4, just struggling to find the grip on the very bottom. Parker White going to give him some support on the very top side. So at least for the moment, he can keep that barrier up without any resistance here for the most part. But Burrows is going to dive back down low in this side-by-side battle. Very fantastic here at Richmond. You're right on board, and Burrows is still there to the bottom. He just has yet to find the clear headway to get by. So at least Nichols is falling back, but he's not falling back without a fight.
Two of the guys who went the this backward, Andrew Navarro and Blaze Crawford started 9th and 6th on the grid, starting to fall into the grasp of your biggest mover on the race so far. Boyd Hogan started this race in 33rd. And that number 11 car has shimmied his way into the 18th position. Christopher Pfeffer, who had some power earlier in the race, is behind him in 19th. And for Crawford and Navarro, again, we talked about them maybe making adjustments on that last stop that they made. And so far, they're still just kind of murked back here in the middle of the pack, trying to find their way around Matt Danson, get their way up to Jonathan Delaney. And for these guys, this is the point of the race where you're coming to 45 laps to go. You need to start your end game, right? So if you continue to slide backwards here, that's going to draw a little bit of concern because you do not want to be on the defensive with 40 to go at Richmond. You want to be on the offensive. So I'm interested to see if either maybe they're saving tires or if these cars are not working as well as they need to. And if this race continues to stay green, how will tire wear contribute to how the last 43 laps of this race go?
It's going to matter a lot, but then you also pose another question. What about the strategy? The drivers who had stayed out, they're now approaching about, let's say, 51 laps, 52 laps on their stint. So at some point, something's got to give against guys like Tucker Minter and company. So are they hoping for maybe a yellow at some point later on in this race, or is this their plan all along that's just not working?
Hey, one thing that I find out quickly, it doesn't matter if it's iRacing or real-world racing, those plans go out the window pretty quickly at times. And if you have a mistimed caution, those plans can be eradicated instantaneously. So whatever you have to do, it's all about adaptation. Drivers, crew chiefs, spotters, it's all about adaptation and figuring out how I need to adapt myself and my car for the best result possible. Right here is adaptation. You have two guys in front of you running side by side. What do you do to make this move on either Brady or Fairnaz if you are Jonathan Delaney? Just trying to find your way forward. So with these guys, it's just trying to find the best way to adapt and make the best out of whatever situation that you can.
We've got to find a solution sooner than later because we are approaching the final 40 laps here at this Richmond Raceway. You continue to watch the fight for what is P6 on the racetrack right now. Remember, Anthony Burrows was underneath Jake Nichols a little bit earlier on. Now he's on the opposite spectrum. He's on the inverse outside, but he's going to be able to clear as Daniel Burafoco got a little bit loose there on the transition coming out of turn 2, and he'll shuffle in, tucked just behind that 10 and in between himself and Parker White, who is currently the one truck in P8. So there's Tucker Minter. You talked about him, of course, the charges he's made. He's already passed Michael Cozy Jr. for second, and now he needs to close in 1.2, 1.3 seconds between himself and your current race leader, Alex McCollum, who last time by, as he crosses the line, just set a 22.851. Tucker Minter with the fresh rubber, Devin, just set a 22.774. So if you're McCollum, I figure you may want to look in that rearview mirror because Tucker Minter is a-coming.
Exactly, and as he continues to try to tack down this lead, some of those other guys with fresh tires, I don't think any of them have even surpassed the top 5. So Minter continues to close on in down to 1.1 seconds, and with the sun coming out, what drivers are going to begin to make a surge? Because the track temperature has now eclipsed 85 degrees. We are now getting closer and closer, creeping in 90-degree track temperature, and that is going to bring out different cars and different drivers who might like to drive it loose. And again, what we talked about earlier, getting on corner exit here at Richmond. Oh my goodness, this is disastrous. Nearly, I do not know how that 30 car managed to stay straight. That was almost major for the second half of this field.
And it started out of turn 2, Devin. Himself and Andrew Navarro got into contact. Navarro just moved up a little bit too high, made contact with the 30, and they were fishtailing on the back straightaway. Somehow nobody got into any of them, and then right after, just a bit of contact to the quarter panel of Danson, but he was able to save it. It was just unbelievable there. That was Boyd Hogan who made the slight contact. There's where everybody culminates together in the same place, same time, but you'll see the start of it all between Navarro and Danson. Here's a look a little bit further behind from Hogan. Right there, the contact is made, and they are pretty much sideways, Devin, on the back straightaway. I do not know how none of them got into an incident there.
That is absolutely incredible. That is, I'm befuddled just imagining the fact. I don't know if I could be in a cockpit in any of those cars who received any contact and not have went backwards. See, just That's a major hit to that 30 car, and he keeps it straight. And then again, I mean, that is a piece of craftsmanship, being able to hold that wheel. And he lost a lot of positions, but he could have lost so much more there. Great save there on multiple occasions.
Well, you look at the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, how they're considered the 40 best in the world. These drivers are trying to be the 40 best in the world, and they definitely do have skill. Great saves by all of the drivers involved in that. Dan Navarro, of course, Boyd Hogan, making sure he can try to get up safely, even with the bare contact to Danson. And Danson with a miraculous second save to keep us green as we approach 31 laps to go. And speaking of which, caution has just came out on the racetrack. There's a spinner coming into turn 1. That's Logan Kress.
All righty, we're going to go green with just over 25 laps to go. Who's going to pit? First and foremost, we'll take a look back at what happened here to bring out this caution. You see the black and gold number 31 car. This is the Cods here coming off of turn number 4. And like I said, this car will never settle down the straightaway if you're getting back on that gas in a timely manner. These cars just don't set, and you have to be on top of really the throttle. The throttle controls what makes a difference if you spin out or not. So you can see, I mean, just listen in, just listen in. I mean, there's a point of no return there, and unfortunately, it's a very fine line. If you haven't raced at Richmond before, coming out of 4, coming out of 2, the entire race, you are fighting this car on corner exit because it never settles. Those 4 tires never set unless you are just extremely ginger on the throttle. It is very difficult to maneuver. Here's your pit stops. I think everyone's coming on down.
Indeed is, and there's one that surges ahead of everybody else. It's Kenny Brady, 9.1 seconds on the pit stop for the 3. And where did he come from? Brady out of nowhere is able to get in front of McCullum.
This is what I like to see. We had a split strategy that really worked out in Tucker Minter's favor, and I mean, Alex McCullum is going to restart second, but the fact that Kenny Brady is going to take, it looks like, I guess 2 tires. I got to go back and see. I mean, I assume he put the right sides on, but I shouldn't assume. But this is where you are going to have someone gunning for a win. Yeah, so right side tires for Kenny Brady. He puts himself up front. And, okay, it wasn't until, there's a lot of things I didn't understand about racing until I got onto iRacing. I will never forget, Kenneth, the first time that I ever took a 2-tire stop on old tires. The amount of grip that those fresh tires have when you hit that throttle on a restart is staggering. The way that the car wants to just rip you to the left because those right sides grip up onto the track so much more than the left sides. Even if it's a minimal, I mean, that wasn't a large run by any stretch of the imagination, but those left sides are going to be so worn out compared to the fresh right sides that how you have to manage this restart as the leader to keep the car straight. Obviously, it's something that Kenny Brady has practiced multiple times over, but it's not simple. For the audience who does not know, it is not simple, and I want to make sure that that is emphasized before we go green. I don't care if he wrecks or if he goes 5 seconds, 10 seconds in front of the field in 2 laps. Launching as the leader on split tires is so difficult and something that we don't look at enough as fans.
And of course, when you're on a restart in high revs, you're going to induce wheel spin even if you have old tires or not. At some point, those rear tires are going to start to spin, and it just makes it worse when you've got worn tires. And for Kenny Brady, this stop, though, could either make or break his race tonight. We have yet to see Brady win a race in 2022 in the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series, so maybe the 3 truck can end up as our 4th different winner in 4 races. We'll have the lights out on the iRacing official pace truck. And to touch on your point there, Devin, of having fresh tires on one side, having old tires on one side, it kind of reminds me of that Corolla Cross commercial with dual zone climate control, where one side is trying to turn the air up because he's in summertime and he's sweltering, and then you have the other person on the other side in the passenger seat and kind of freezing and turning up the heat. It's kind of like that. Maybe just a little different in racing terms, but nonetheless, we'll see if the call pays off for Kenny Brady, who will lead the field on discretion back to the green flag. McCullum surges ahead. He doesn't know when Brady's going to go. Brady's going to hop on the gas later than usual. We're back racing from Richmond with less than 30 laps to go.
That was an absolute gift for Kenny Brady because that makes everyone behind the leader shudder. So that made that restart a little bit easier for Kenny Brady because McCollum and the rest of the field don't really know what to do after that happens. Now Tucker Minter has the ability to take this to Alex McCollum. If that 4 can get into second, he's definitely got a chance to get this win.
And Brady's probably going to get helped here because Minter is side by side with McCollum. If they continue to race each other hard, even with Brady having some old rubber, it's going to help him keep the gap or at least grow it for just a bit. You're right on board with Minter, who now officially clears McCollum for second. And we may have a 1v1 fight on our hands. You saw right there Minter bobbling the car coming out of turn 4. And here he comes inside for the race lead, turn 1 and 2.
Minter ducks it in, has a burst momentum, all 4 tires gripping and blasting off. You can see just a little bit, Brady's car is just a little bit unsettled, can't roll back into the throttle in time. Tucker Minter gets a nose, new leader, the number 4 out front with 22 to go.
And Minter has been dominant, especially in the first opening where he landed himself on pole after qualifying, and he finds himself right where he started this race. Clear for the lead goes Minter into turn 3. This time Alex McCollum finds the door open for second, and he immediately makes easy work out of Kenny Brady. Falkingham next on the chopping block.
Still a lot of laps to go, now 22 laps to go. For Kenny Brady, when are these tires going to finally kind of even out on the right side and left side? If they even out soon enough, he might still be able to make a charge and finish top 3. But now Falkingham decides to take a look at that number 3 machine as well. 15 wants to get himself on the podium. Seth the Merchant not too far behind either.
And Seth the Merchant will be there for the taking. Same deal for Daniel Budafoco, who's in a fight with Michael Cozy Jr. for P6 on the racetrack. So if anything happens to Brady, if he cannot hold on to that middle lane, there are a myriad of trucks trying to take it all from him. Here comes the Merchant now. He'll peek his nose of the Toyota Tundra TRD Pro to the inside. Barely there. Falkingham will find a way to clear on the braking zone at turn 1. And Brady, you got to give props for making this call in the clutch area of this race. But it is not working out for him for the moment.
And I'm going to go as far as to say it worked. At least it has right now. 20 laps to go. If you can try to stay probably inside the top 10, that's still a win. Just being able to grab those extra positions. Remember, this is a points battle, guys. Top 70 across all of the different, splits. They've categorized all those points together. So you're not just battling the top 35 here. You're battling everybody on iRacing. So if he can just grab some extra points, it's still a win compared to where he would have been if he did not make that 2-tire stop.
And also to mention, going into tonight's race at Richmond Raceway, Kenny Brady sits 3rd on the point standings out of the top 70. So it's been a great couple races for this 3 truck. And even with this call, I think to tailor off your point, Devin, if he stays at least within the top 10 and is able to hold something off, even if it's not the race win, it could just keep his points gap rather stable to everybody else, and he won't lose as many positions in the point standings going into the race in a couple of weeks' time. You see there, Cozy now dives to the inside. Anthony Burrows is going to be next. Jake Nichols, Parker White among the drivers behind them, trying to freight train on that single file lane down low. And Brady is just trying to keep the fence up, but it continues to get knocked down over and over and over again. I think, Devin, if you're Brady right now, you don't care about drivers just trying to fight for you for position. You just need to be single file for once.
Yeah, and you can kind of see every lap it gets a little bit calmer and calmer. The truck starts to get a little bit more evened out on the right side and left side. It's little by little as he continues to get railed on the inside lane, but as that car continues to get better, it becomes a more manageable battle for him. Might be able to fit into this hole behind him before Jordy Lopez shows up, and he'll slide into that 10th position. But Tucker Minter now has already grabbed a 9/10 of a second lead. Started on pole, looking to get the win in this race. That has actually only happened once in the real-life NASCAR Truck Series history. That was Terry Labonte. It's the only time that ever happened back in September of 1995, the first ever Truck Series race at Richmond.
Well, that's an interesting fact, and I think something that maybe Tucker Minter will think about for just a little bit. We crossed the line, 13 laps to go, and if Tucker Minter can get this done as he sets a lap pretty much almost a full 10th over Alex McCollum, very close, but still very far on the lap counter there this time by. If Tucker Minter can get to victory lane, He will be the third Logitech G Altus eSports truck to win in this 2022 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series in top split. You talk about Seth the Merchant winning the race at Daytona in stellar fashion. You think about Jordi Lopez, the photo finish he had with the Merchant at Atlanta 2 weeks ago, and now having another one of their teammates shine in the spotlight here in Virginia. Tucker Minter looking to add on to the Logitech G Altus eSports win counter as one of his teammates, Jordi Lopez, is in a clear fight, but a caution will come out. It's Brian Smith.
Brian Smith. And this might mix up everything, and this is the last thing that Kenny Brady wanted to see. I don't know if this is going to help even out his tires, but he's going to restart in the outside of the 6th row, so he's not going to be able to get down to the inside. Take a look back at what happens here to the number 27 car. The black with the orange spoiler, kind of stuck in a sandwich here. I think this is going to happen going into 3 as well, so watch that black number 27 machine going down the back straightaway. Add a little bit of help, and that's a lot of bit of damage.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage to Brian M. Smith's number 27, and we had this happen a little bit earlier on in this race. I believe it was Larry Pace that got tagged by Boyd Hogan in the same place at the same time, entering turn 3, just in the braking zone. Mozganoff tried to dive it a little deeper than Smith did, but ultimately Smith paid the price and the contact on the rear end, and then Smith just backs it into the wall. Obviously, nothing that Smith could do there. It hasn't been the greatest effort for him. He started in 27th and has now fallen back to 32nd with that spin. As it looks like, Devin, field is on pit road, at least a good amount of them. Not many of the leaders, but it's Santiago Tires on back, 23rd on back, making tire stops for a final hope to maybe charge for some extra points.
Yeah, one last hope that you're able to grab something out of this. So, again, this isn't always about winning. When you go into your typical official race, yeah, it's about winning. Yeah, iRacing is nice, but you want to go out and win the races. This is a drag race off of pit road. But when you come to Road to Pro and you want to be in that next group that goes into round 2, it's about getting every point that you can. We see it in the Contender Series going to the Coke Series. We see it in Road to Pro Stage 1 going into Road to Pro Stage 2. We see it from Road to Pro going to Contender. Every now and again, you get a gap of either a tiebreaker, 1 point, 2 points, that decides who moves on to the next round. I have never seen in any other professional sport, in any other form of iRacing, real-world racing, where on so many occasions, a slim amount of points, less than you can count on one hand, is the difference between somebody making it to the next round and potentially being a pro and being done for the rest of the year in those hopes. So this is that first stage where you need every single point that you can get, because we've seen too many times when the slimmest of margins makes the difference.
So we will go green. What looks to be most likely 6 laps to go here from the virtual Richmond Raceway. Actually, we will go another lap. The lights are still on the iRacing official pace car, so Tucker Minter will wait a little bit longer and have more anticipation for what's probably going to be the restart of this race. If you're Tucker Minter trying to hold on to where he started in this event in qualifying P1 on the pole, and is now going to try to keep it here for the checkered flag, get his first win in this 2022 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series season. Just before we go green, I want to remind you that our coverage live on Podium Esports is brought to you by Elite Performance Industries, your home for iRacing setups, apparel, and driver development. Contact the EPI social media pages to get in touch and learn from guys like eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series champion Michael Conti. For more information, visit ElitePerformanceIndustries.com. EPI, your home for all things iRacing. All right, so ready for a restart here with about 5 laps to go here for the Richmond Raceway. And I guess, by the way, to touch on it, if it helps, EPI sponsor, Michael Conti, part of that sponsor. Conti a winner in the Coke Series earlier this week. I don't know if there's a relation there. There is, kind of. But no doubt, we're ready for a restart. Tucker Minter, Alex McCollum on the front row. Devin, your final thoughts before we get what could be the final restart tonight?
Tires don't matter anymore. Whatever rubber you got left on there, use them. Use it. Get that extra spot, get that extra position, Of course, though, don't drive too hard because still it's going to be hard on corner exit, both 2 and 4.
It will be Minter and McCollum on the front row. McCollum slides a bit. Green flag back in the air with 5 laps to go from the Richmond Raceway. McCollum dives for the block in front of Daniel Falkingham. He'll relinquish. He'll be side by side with Seth the Merchant, but McCollum is right on Minter's tail.
The Merchant gets away from Falkingham. Jake Nichols trying to utilize that outside lane. He wants the 4th position. Will the outside be any help for some of these drivers? They get stuck on that outside abyss.
I have to find out. That's Jake Nichols trying to fight with McCollum. They are 4 wide going into turn 1. And how does that not cause a yellow flag? The Hornet's Nest is insane. And remember, we talked about drivers who had pitted earlier on in tonight's coverage had found themselves in situations like that. And they find their way in it again, at least for a majority of the field who are trying to make this call. The focus, though, relies on Tucker Minter. 3 laps to go, and McCollum is still there. And now I got to ask Devin, does he have anything left in the tank to fight against Minter?
From what I've seen out of Tucker Minter, the answer is an absolute no. But if McCollum can pull something out of the hat, all you got to do is get to that left rear quarter panel. You don't need to touch it. You just need to get there and force him into that outside lane. Haven't seen Minter have to use that besides when he was going through the field. 2 laps to go, though. I don't think anyone's going to catch Tucker Minter.
Minter still not running away with it. McCollum is still keeping himself there, but you also got to think Seth the Merchant is here as they approach the white flag here from the Richmond Raceway. Minter needing one last opportunity to hold McCollum at bay. The Merchant trying to charge in for second, but hasn't made the pass complete.
Started P1, Tucker Minter looking to add his name to the list of winners in the first round of Road to Pro. Dominant here tonight.
Tucker Minter from the pole to the win. Logitech Gialta Esports occupies victory lane once again as Tucker Minter wins round 4 of the 2022 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series in the first short track race of the season.
When Minter was out front, nobody could catch him. There's one teammate saying a good job. Welcome on into victory lane. Minter puts on a show. Not just from his pole time, not just from winning the race, but what he did after he went down on pit road and sliced his way through the field. I don't know if he wouldn't have made his way up to P2 if he could have won this race, even with those extra cautions. What he did, blitzing through the field after he pitted, was absolutely astounding, and I think the reason why he'll be in victory lane tonight at Richmond.
Minter is able to get it done. What a performance. What a drive by the 10 truck. There's Matt Danson. Remember his save earlier on tonight. Props to him for keeping his truck intact and celebrating here with Minter as they'll park perfectly on top of the Richmond Raceway sign. I think that's a good screenshot for Twitter later on tonight. Minter, your winner for the first time this season. Let's take a look at your full field rundown. See exactly where every driver finished in round 4. Of course, Tucker Minter led the field from the pole to the green flag, and he did not let up in the final laps of this race. He ends up taking the win, although got to give props to Alex McCollum. A lot of charging efforts there by the number 16. Led a good amount of this race while Minter was trying to carve his way through the field on strategy. McCollum finishes second. Seth the Merchant, what a drive it is for him. It's 2 straight top 3s for him. Finished second at Atlanta, finishes third tonight from Richmond. Jake Nichols rebounds from a little struggle in the mid portion of the race. He finishes in P4. Daniel Falkingham started in 10th and was able to work his way, cut that in half. He is in the top 5 at the end. Daniel Budafoco ends up in P6. Michael Cozy Jr., who started pretty high up in the field in P2, he falls back to 7th near the end. Anthony Burrows, the Walter man, ends up in P8. Drew Ferrienars is 9th, and Jonathan Delaney, Devin, rounds out the top 10.
Parker White takes stone P11, followed by Jordy Lopez Jr. and Joel Blewett. Devin Curl is your Podium Esports hard charger, going from 28th to 14th tonight. Kenny Brady has to salvage a 15th place finish after taking 2 tires on that last pit stop. Blaze Crawford will finish in 16th. Santiago Tires settles for 17th. Christopher Pfeffer brings it home in P18. 19th is Matt Danson, and your top 20 is rounded out by David Brown.
Boyd Hogan didn't have the greatest outing tonight from Richmond. He ends up 21st at the end. Same deal for Casey Tucker, who rounds out 22nd. Brad Mahar in the 6th truck will be 23rd. Logan Kress, we saw him spinning just before turn 1 earlier on tonight. He finishes 24th. Out of the field, 25th will go to Trevor Edwards in his truck. Tyler Gary in the 20 started 12th but falls back to 26 to finish this race. Andrew Navarro, we saw a good starting spot for him and a good run in the opening stint before falling back. He ends up 27th. Brad Davies finishes the night in 28th with Brian M. Smith. We saw that spin just before the checkered flag in that last run. He is 29th out of the trucks this evening. Justin Norwood in the 35 ends up rounding out the top 30. And then it's Eugene Mozganov, Larry Pace, Justin Bolton, Daniel Roper, and Tyler Severa. Severa did not start this race on the grid, so he was pretty much out of it from the drop of the green flag. So that's all of the field here tonight from the Richmond Raceway, but it is our time to take a moment to talk with the driver who ends up first out of 35. Tucker Minter wins his first race in this Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series season. And it'll be our time to talk with your winner. Tucker, an unbelievable showing, not only from this run right here to end the race, but from the drop of the green flag. You set the time ahead of everybody else. You led the field from the pole. What went behind the scintillating speed you had at Richmond?
Yeah, it was just a lot of work this week. I really appreciate all the help everybody at Alta C Sports put in this week, from James to Dave to Merch to everybody, helping with the testing sessions. I've been feeling really good since, I guess, about Friday or Saturday. I just kind of found something in my driving, I guess, that I gained like a second and a half in driving on the spreadsheet. And with that, I was just feeling super good and confident.
And the confidence obviously ended up displaying itself here at Richmond Raceway. You end up controlling that final start with Alex McCollum trying to take the lead away, but you were able to play some defense and hold him off in the final stint to get to the checkered flag first. But you mentioned Logitech G Alta C Sports, obviously plastered all over the Chevrolet Silverado tonight, and you've been repping them since the beginning, and it looks like over the last at least year and a half, this team has become one of the top level contenders in Road to Pro and in the Contender Series to make it all the way to the Coke Series level. What about this Logitech G Alta Esports team is so strong that you guys are able to put up runs like this and to have so many of your drivers run up front week in, week out?
Yeah, I was approached to join Logitech G Alta Esports December last year, and after talking to the guys, I thought it would be a good fit, and I was fortunate enough they allowed me to bring about 5 or 6 of my friends from my previous team, and I think it's just made the team a lot stronger. And I think we all have the feeling that we're the best team that's not represented in Coke, and that we all feel like we deserve to be there. And so we're all working super hard, and it's a great environment.
And with this win tonight at Richmond, you become the 3rd Logitech G Alta Esports driver to win in the first 4 races of this eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series season. So I think that tells you just how strong you guys as a team are. But now we move on to Bristol Motor Speedway. Of course, we'll have our dirt race in round number 2, but we start with the asphalt, the old reliable Bristol Motor Speedway. Based off of the short track success you've had here tonight, what is the motive going into Bristol 2 weeks from today?
Yeah, just bringing a boatload of confidence, really. I really love driving at Bristol. James loves Bristol. Merch won Bristol last year, so I know it's going to be a strong program. It's not really going to be a direct translation from what we had here at Richmond with, the extra banking and everything, but I'm excited to start testing for Bristol and hopefully have another good run there.
Well, a lot of optimism, no doubt, coming out of tonight, and you end up winning here in this race from Richmond Raceway. On behalf of our team, Tucker, want to congratulate you on tonight's W, and of course, wishing you and your team the best of luck in 2 weeks' time from Bristol.
Thanks, guys, and thanks to Logitech G and VRS and all our other partners.
Tucker Minter leads the field from the pole, and he is your winner at the end of 130 laps from our first short track race of the season. We'll find a way to talk to P2. It is Alex McCollum, who was there near the end, just short of the win, but no doubt still a great run out of the 16 truck. He's caught up with our very own Devin Henry.
Well, Alex, you spent a lot of time up front, had an opportunity with the late race restart. What else did you need to get Tucker there and end up in victory lane here at Richmond?
I Honestly, I don't know. He was pretty solid all night. It was going to be tough to get around him. Honestly, solid effort. I knew we had a really, really good truck, and I just had to play the strategy right, and glad I did.
There were a lot of drivers finding trouble, whether it be other trucks, the track, the changing track temperature and cloud coverage. What worked for you guys and your team tonight to run up front so much and bring home a second-place finish?
Honestly, it's all the effort they put in and all the hard work and dedication they put into this truck. Glad we got the results from them. It's tough running with these guys, and you know, I probably should have done a little bit more laps on my part. Made a few mistakes, but I'm just pumped to get a finally good finish where we deserve to finish.
Bristol up next, and then this season very quickly winds down before we get to the second round of Road to Pro. How do you look at and attack the remaining portion of the schedule?
Unfortunately, I won't be here for Bristol, because of real life racing coming up here in a week or two. Unfortunately, I'll be missing that. The rest of the schedule, I feel pretty confident, and all the guys at EPI, Team Conti, Dustin Hall, Ottinger, Mahar, everybody there puts in so much work, and they're dedicated, and we're going to get the finish for them.
Well, Alex, we'll miss you in 2 weeks' time, but for now, congratulations on the second-place finish here at Richmond.
Thank you.
Alex McCollum coming home second here at Richmond in Road to Pro. Now we have your third-place finisher tonight, Seth the Merchant with Kenneth Bueno. Or maybe not. Never mind. I jumped the gun on that one.
It's all good. We unfortunately don't have Seth the Merchant in any of the waiting rooms, so we won't be able to get a word with him and ask how his perspective was tonight and moving forward. But with the way that Tucker Minter dominated with the words that he expressed about the team, I think Seth the Merchant very happy with his result here tonight, and the entire team smiling ear to ear about what's going to come up next in the entire schedule. And this schedule, Devin, moving forward, we head to 2 other short tracks before we step back to intermediate racing. Bristol first, Dover Motor Speedway right after. If you're a driver at this stage of the round, what do you need to execute the next 2 races and be able to at least master the short track section of this calendar?
Well, unfortunately, sometimes with Bristol, it's kind of like Daytona, where when the race ends and you just go, well, it was Daytona. Or in this case, well, it was Bristol. Bristol races do Bristol things. Sometimes you're not entirely in control of your destiny, but the number one thing that you can do to be in the most control of your destiny is run up front like Tucker Minter did tonight in our first dirt track. Dover is the exact same way, and also Dover has that extra little wrinkle of how difficult it is on corner exit to keep the car under you. In Bristol, of course, you're going 100 miles an hour mentally while you're also trying to attack that track, and everyone behind you is attacking you. So these 3 short tracks, I love what iRacing has picked for the schedule because they are all 3 difficult short tracks in their own right in different ways, but they also somewhat connect to each other in different aspects as well. So a really interesting 3-race stretch of the short tracks before we hit those intermediates again. And man, round 2 is so diverse in its schedule, but the way that they're able to make this a diverse grouping with having a span of 3 short tracks and then there's 4 intermediates in here, is still a very diverse group of tracks that you really need to take a different approach into every single week.
And it's shown us so far that this picking of the calendar has enabled us to find different winners in the schedule, and as of now, we have yet to see a repeat driver go to victory lane. DeMerchant won at Daytona, Tires at Las Vegas, Jordi Lopez at Atlanta, and now Tucker Minter, newly crowned victor here at the Richmond Raceway. We've yet to see somebody make 2 wins happen in the same season. We'll find out if Bristol is the place where we snap the streak or whether we keep it rolling for the rest of round number 1. Bristol will be up next 2 weeks from tonight. That'll be at 9 p.m. Eastern right here on the main Podium Esports Twitch channel. The Last Great Coliseum will surely provide us a great challenge for not only ourselves as broadcasters, but everybody on the racetrack trying to make it to the top 70 and advance to round 2 of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. So for Ryan Bauer and John Theodore over at Podium Esports, for our producer this evening, Gary Sexton, our camera builder, Dougie Beard, and my colleague in the booth, Devin Henry, my name is Kenneth Bueno. Saying so long and good night from the Virginia Commonwealth. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time in the South, Bristol Motor Speedway, up next in 2 weeks.